We're talking today about our new series at City Life Church, Don't Waste Your Work. I'm here with Robert and Scott. We're going to talk a little bit about what they do in their work and how they're not wasting it, but using it for the Lord. So let's talk a little bit to Robert here. Tell me about what you do and tell us about what that is.
Yeah, I lead a nonprofit called Preoccupied. So basically I work with students with ADHD, learning disabilities, stuff like that. I'm a distraction coach. That's what I call myself.
Distraction coach.
Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Scott, what about you?
I'm a trial lawyer, and I practice in the area of employment law.
Okay.
So I represent large, responsible, job-creating employers against their greedy, ungrateful, frivolous lawsuit filing employees.
I like that. Oh, that was very good. Very well constructed.
intense.
What does it look like for Christ to be involved in your work, specifically Scott, thinking about being a trial lawyer and having your work and worship together? What does that look like for you personally?
Well, I think it's more than just being ethical. I think that should be a baseline. That should be a no-brainer. What I have struggled with for the last few years and really tried to apply is this idea of being able to do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah.
I don't think that means that we are Superman, that we can do anything and we can leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Right.
But what it should mean is that we can do all types of things through the power of the Holy Spirit, that He's not just interested in us ministering to one another, which is obviously key and important, but He's interested in what we do on a day-to-day basis. He wants to joint venture with us in what we do in our work.
Yeah. So how have you experienced that in the workplace for you?
Well, examples would be, for example, being in a trial. And I had a trial a couple years ago where the attorneys who were questioning this very difficult witness before me were really having trouble getting an answer out of him. And so I'm praying while I'm sitting there, obviously silently, not, I didn't stand up and do anything in front of the jury. No, I didn't think that would be prudent. But so I'm praying silently and I'm saying, Lord, what do I do with this witness to get the truth out of him, to get a straight answer? Because he was not giving a straight answer.
Yeah.
And in an instant, I just saw three questions to ask. And there are three questions I'd never asked before.
Wow.
I hadn't planned them or anything like that. But when I saw them and kind of knew them kind of right off the bat after I prayed, I knew they'd work. And so when I got up and it was my time to question the witness, I asked him these three questions. Yeah. And once I did, he said yes, yes, and yes. And then for the next 20 minutes, it was boom, boom, boom. And I was able to get everything I wanted.
That's great.
And I knew it was the Lord because it was not something I had thought about. People came up to me afterwards. They're like, where did you get that? I said, well, I told Andy, my associate who's a believer, I said, well, I prayed.
That was the Lord,
But that's an example of something I wouldn't have done probably years ago.
Right.
Until I recognized that the Lord wants to be involved in our work.
Yeah,
right.
He didn't want you to just pray in the morning and go to work and then default into the flesh.
Right.
For sure.
And I love that because you think about like the Gospels, right? And Jesus is constantly being questioned by scribes, by lawyers, by other people. And it's like he knows, and it would say he knew what was in their heart.
Right.
He knew what was in their mind. And of course he's Jesus, but he's representing man as well. And so that's really profound, and you could see how that would work. But most people wouldn't associate a lawyer with being spirit-filled. And so, did you have any thoughts about that?
Well, there's some pastors who aren't spirit-filled.
Oh, there you go. There's a lot of different entities that aren't spirit-filled. Right? Yeah, that's true. That's awesome. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I think first thing that comes to mind is just like partnerships in general. I think work ethic, ethics in general. I think sometimes Christians have this stigma to be overly charismatic, but sometimes not delivering in excellence with your product or with your service.
Right.
I think it's really super duper important to me that I operate in integrity and in honesty. I'm really, really clear about the partnership.
Yeah.
Overly communicate. I'm there early. I'm not showing up because now I'm on their time.
Right.
So I absolutely want to be like, ethically, I just want to go above and beyond. Because sometimes the moment someone finds out like, oh, this guy's a Christian, it's kind of like, let's watch out. This could get a little weird. So I think the first thing is like deliver.
Yeah,
Christ empowers us to absolutely deliver the thing that we're promising our client or our customer above and beyond. Yeah. And I think that just that standpoint, being empowered by the Holy Spirit to push beyond, not just the oh, we're going to do just the bare minimum. Like above and beyond that should be even more important.
For sure.
And I think the second part of that is for me, when I'm leading workshops, there may be 400 people in the room. So I'm constantly asking God, like, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Like, who do you want to talk to specifically? Like, what topic should I go on, or what insecurity are you working on? And I won't even say anything about Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about distractions and insecurities and things that are sometimes blocking our goals for the semester.
Yeah.
And I'll just come in and just flow with the Holy Spirit. And he wants to speak to Cynthia. I don't even know who Cynthia is. And then I just start talking. And in my examples, I'll say, let's just say Cynthia, so-and-so and so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then after the workshop's over, someone's crying, someone's saying that really spoke to me. I have not said Jesus, I haven't said God, I haven't said anything about any of those things.
Yeah.
And people are leaving completely empowered, completely changed. And then they end up saying, like, something about you is different.
Yeah.
I think that's like Christ in those things. Not necessarily saying I have to go to work and say Jesus, 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 Jesus.
Yeah.
But I think it's a matter of going to work and like going above and beyond in excellence. Define excellence, because if it's not defined, it's just effort. And if it's effort,
Right.
it can get a little wishy-washy.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I mean, that is the best example you can make, is just by being excellent. You know, when Jesus was at the wedding at Cana, and he was asked to assume the role of a winemaker. I mean, that's a so-called secular job, right? He wasn't acting as a minister.
Yeah.
He turns the water into wine, but he doesn't turn the water into just wine. He turns it into excellent wine. So when he assumes the role of a winemaker, he makes excellent wine. And we're supposed to act in his image or be conformed to his image. So when whatever we do, whether it be a lawyer or whatever, then we should be excellent. And when we do, we're representing his image to the world. We're showing people who God is, that he's an excellent God.
So I love what you're saying about excellence, and yet in our culture, excellence isn't necessarily associated with a religious person or a Christian.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge gap there a lot of times. I mean, people don't say nonprofit church, man, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
And so I think trying to bridge that gap can be complicated. How would you recommend or say you would do that in your context?
Yeah, I think in the marketplace, people are not so much concerned about what you believe in. Yeah. They're more concerned about your actions.
That's right.
That kind of demonstrate what you believe in.
Yeah.
So, contrary to popular belief, I think it's kind of easier than what we sometimes make it to be.
Yeah.
If we can deliver on just our actions and how we actually like demonstrate what does Christ look like, being ethical. Like, what do you say? What do you talk about? Do you gossip?
Right.
What do you talk about at the water cooler or in the passing of the hallway by the bathroom?
Yeah.
I think those little things where you maintain character are the things that kind of bring people in close. And honestly, at least as it relates to my world, when unbelievers or people of different religions, they don't necessarily care immediately like, hey, what do you believe in? They just want friendship and relationship.
Right.
They just want to bridge the gap like, hey, if I can get some buy-in with you, Robert, as a person, I'll listen to whatever you have to say.
Yeah.
We'll go to coffee, we'll hang out, I'll come to your church, I'll meet with you, I'll do all these different things. So I think the gap is easier than sometimes we make it out to be. It's not a matter of like saying, hey, this is the gospel and you absolutely need it, which there is a time and a place for that, and it absolutely is true. But most of the time with my interactions and partners and chancellors and vice presidents and educators, they're not necessarily interested in Christianity face surface, scratching the surface. But I think they're more interested in like me. Yeah. And if they can get me, they'll genuinely begin to accept the Christianity or the invitation to church or a group.
Yeah, or want to know more about
absolutely.
what makes you you.
Absolutely.
Right.
But it's a matter of like performing ethically in excellence and maintaining your integrity and not gossiping and not
let your yes be yes.
Just being really, really clear, being on time. When you're on the company's time, be there and not necessarily on social media because you're on that person's time. Be honoring of those things. And I think honestly, because of the world we live in, kindness goes so far.
It's great. Yeah.
It goes so far. So if you just buy someone some coffee in the morning when you walk in and say, hey, I thought about you, it blows people's minds.
Right.
Completely. So for me,
because they're dog eat dog or just trying to get their stuff done.
For
not
sure.
Think about anybody else. Just
for
the
sure.
Task. Yeah.
So it's just it's the little things for me. It's the little things with people who don't believe what I believe.
Right.
It's the little things in how we transact business and everything that we do. It's just the little things over and over and over.
Yeah. That's great.
That's great. I almost never tell people that I'm a Christian lawyer. up front. I just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point?
Yeah,
Because then if
yeah.
you do a bad job,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
You're weird.
Christian, right?
Represented
Yeah.
Jesus.
Right, right. I try to do an excellent job, and then if somebody asks me, what motivates you, or what do you feel like makes you a good lawyer, then I'll tell them.
Open door.
Right, right. But our role is to glorify God.
Yeah.
Okay, and so doing bad work and saying you're a Christian does just the opposite.
Opposite, complete opposite.
And if you're talking to Christians, how do you get them to a level of excellence? I think the big step is having them recognize for whom they work. Right. So if you feel like you're working for the money, or you're working for your boss, or you're working for a company,
Right.
then your level of work is going to be about as good as it needs to be, right? But if you recognize, as Paul says, that you're supposed to do your work as to the Lord and not unto men, you're working for a much more critical and higher standard, right? Number one. And you're working for somebody who sees what you do all the time, even when your boss is not around.
Yeah.
That's going to raise your game.
Right.
And so it should make you more excellent when you recognize for whom it is you're doing.
Was
your work.
that something you felt like you entered into your vocation, your career with that attitude, or is that something that has grown, and what kind of built that ultimately in you?
Yeah, no, I think it grew, and it's just, frankly, it came from reading the Word and being convicted about it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
If you're working for money, like my dad used to say when I was younger, he said, son, that's what he called me. He couldn't remember my name a lot of times, but he said, son, there'll always be people who have more money than you do, and it doesn't matter if you work for money, you make a lot of money. You get used to those numbers on your paycheck, and the newness of it wears off, and that's not going to be satisfying.
Your lifestyle will raise. You'll just need more.
That's right. That's right. But if if you're working to satisfy the Lord, that keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Rob? Was it something that, obviously none of it's natural, but was it something that was continued to grow and develop, or maybe you had a wrong motive and then switched, or?
Yeah. Well, I'm a grade A millennial.
Okay.
Which means it's my money and I need it now.
Oh my
I don't want it now. I need it now.
I need it now.
I like things instant, immediate gratification. If I'm not passionate about it, it's hard for me to do it. So I definitely think it's something that had to be learned and pruned over time.
Yeah.
That what I'm working towards and what I'm trying to build is like bigger than just me and bigger than just my current situation.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I measure success, or I measure career, or I measure a lot of those things by how I currently feel.
Yeah.
And even like hanging out with Scott a lot, it's like, it's not about how you feel.
Right.
Like God is using your boss or your whoever you report to or whatever partnership you create, God is using that to ultimately change you.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a process over time. So be okay with it.
Yeah.
Be okay with the process. Be okay with the pruning. Celebrate what's worth being celebratory about, and just enjoy the journey. For sure, a journey. It was not a switch for me. I'm definitely, it should be this way.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
And life doesn't work that way.
So another question, why do you think, or do you think it's important for Christians to enter into your career field? How would you encourage and want
Great
and say,
question.
hey, we want some other Christians involved in this as an entrepreneur? I'll start with you, Rob.
Yeah, I think we definitely need more. I think the world would be more awesome if people were moving in integrity and honesty with a conviction as they did business versus not delivering on what you said, what you promised, not completing your project or your service or stuff like that. So I think for sure, I think God's call to go and make disciples of all nations empowers entrepreneurs to go and make disciples of all nations.
Yeah.
I think we definitely play a huge part of that, not only on the discipleship of people and humans, but building a place where people want to work.
Yeah.
Like if I can create an atmosphere or a healthy culture of a team of people who actually enjoy and love each other, that becomes like contagious.
Right. Yeah.
And that then affects our partners and our clients. And that affects the actual students that we have workshops with. And then it's just a domino effect and it keeps going. So for sure, I think we should be on an all-out sprint towards entrepreneurship to create something that God gave me the whole concept of preoccupied to begin with.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I went after. It wasn't something that I dreamed of at night. It was something where God said, I want to take your testimony and I want to take the giftings that I've given you and I'm going to give you a platform.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I went running after by no means. I just said, hey, God, I'm in this.
Yeah.
Whatever you want me to do. And then this kind of happened.
Do you have other entrepreneurs that are believers that has helped you to grow in that or kept you accountable, that kind of stuff?
For sure. I meet with my mentor, if you will, every other month for 4 years straight. Mm-hmm. I would listen to his wisdom on money, listen to his wisdom on being places on time.
Who's your mentor? Who is that?
Scott Phil.
Yeah.
Didn't want to say it, but now I try to say mentor. You know, I didn't want to go deep.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, the cat and the dog's out the bag. Golly. But he would talk to me about integrity, being on like the power of being on time.
Right.
You create your own brand. Like I am a walking, living, breathing brand.
Yep.
If people are going to believe in me, they'll be more likely to believe in what I'm selling them.
Right.
So, but as the moment the clock strikes, like I'm on that person's time, and I need to respect it and honor it. Talked about QuickBooks, talked about savings, talked about 401k, talked about practical stuff, not running yourself through the dirt, talked about not being lazy. You need to work 6 days a week. Come on. Like what else do you have to do? Yeah. And then also probably the most mind-blowing thing to me now that he's kind of rubbed off on me, like don't feel like you need to be at a certain stage at this age in your life. Because for me, I see him, I want what he has this year.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't see the work that he's put in the last 25 years to be where he's at currently, which is something that we all struggle with. So I think right now I'm just in that devour stage. Later on, we'll have a feast and we'll have all kind of times to eat and talk and chat and things like that. But right now it's like plow, and then always do exactly what you said you're gonna do.
Yeah.
If they don't deliver or if they drop the ball, let them.
Right.
But that's on them. But as far as your side, do exactly what you said. So I think it's crazy important.
Yeah.
Crazy important.
I think Dave Ramsey's the one who says, live like no one else now so that later you can live like no one else.
Yeah.
And so, that's great. What about you, Scott? What's your thoughts as far as someone entering into being a trial lawyer as a career field? Yeah.
Well, let me kind of broaden the question out because I think it would apply to why would anybody want to enter into any job.
Okay.
And make it a little bit broader. Because I think a lot of times what we do is we think, well, if you really want to make a difference, you really want to change the world, you need to go into the full-time ministry. Mm-hmm. And I almost went into the full-time ministry when I came out of law school because I had the same thought. But I think that's a dualistic way of thinking about things. It's thinking that somehow that what the ministry is a sacred vocation and then there's secular work. And I don't think there's sacred and secular work. I think there's legitimate work and there's illegitimate work.
Yeah, that's great.
Some illegitimate work would be prostitution, dealing drugs, things that Jesus has no need for in his goal to redeem the earth.
Yeah,
right?
That's great.
But every other job, I don't think one is greater than the other. I mean, you can have pastors who are just doing the job for the money, right? And they're, is that better than a lawyer or an entrepreneur who's spirit-filled and who's doing the work for the Lord?
That's so good.
So I think the big picture is recognizing that Jesus manages the planet through our work.
That's great.
Right? I mean, he needs justice to be done on earth. He needs businesses to create jobs.
Yeah.
And he's doing that. He wants to do that through people.
Yeah.
And so that is on par with, that's one way he expands the kingdom is by Christians permeating the workplace and then doing the work to the glory of him.
Yeah.
As much as it is leading people to the Lord and that kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
Whatever job you have, as long as it's a legitimate job, you are managing the planet for Jesus, and that's significant. It adds significance to everybody's job.
That's great. Yeah.
So one last final thought, maybe both of you have, if you have a final one, just to talk to our audience about work and worship and really not wasting your work just on the altar of work in general, but giving it to the Lord as the Lord doesn't waste anything. Do you have any final thoughts you would want to share?
So one thing that Paul said was to do your work with all your heart. The Bible says to do your work wholeheartedly.
Right.
And that means to do it with all your being, to do it with your mind, your soul, your emotions, to be completely engaged in what you do. And it's interesting that the other time where the Lord commands us to engage him with mind, soul, and emotions is in loving him and worshiping him.
Yeah.
And in fact, he says in another place, he says that this people, they honor me with their mouth, but their heart's far away from me. It's an insincere form of worship.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us work in an insincere way. We do our work for the money.
Yeah.
We do it, I mean, even to say I do it for the money so I can give to the church, that's not sincere. You're not doing the job for the purpose that God created the job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have an ulterior motive and your interests are divided. So I think as far as a final word, it's that we should be totally engaged in what we do. Just like we worship the Lord with our heart, soul, mind, and spirit, we should work in the same way with our engaged intellectually in what we're doing, not thinking about where we would rather be. That we should be totally engaged in our emotions. And emotions are funny things. They follow. They don't usually lead.
Yeah.
So there are times when I don't want to go to work, but I go to work, I start doing the work, I get engaged, and the emotions follow, and then I start to enjoy what I'm doing. So to be totally engaged in what we do.
Let me add to that. Why do you think we have the divide between this concept, between God and work? And why do you think that's in our culture and something we even have to approach as if it's some new idea?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's dualism, and it comes from Greek thought. I mean, we think like Greeks, right? I mean, the Hebrews didn't think like this. They had a holistic view of looking at life, but we, I guess, trace it back to Plato, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we break things out into the secular and the sacred, and we want to compartmentalize, and that's not the way things are. And the best evidence of that. That we shouldn't divide things up between the spiritual and the natural is that Jesus came and took on human flesh.
Yeah.
So he did away with that whole concept of dualism.
So what about you, Robert? Any final thoughts you would have for everybody?
Yeah, I just would want people to be encouraged to feel empowered to work versus feeling like they need to be in full-time ministry or vocational ministry to feel as if what they're doing is meaningful.
Yeah.
I think God is excited about imploring Christians into the marketplace.
Yeah.
Big time. I think we spend way more time there than we ever would here on a Sunday morning or in a group. So that's my biggest encouragement. Feel like, hey, me going to the marketplace is going to make a difference for the kingdom. Big
That's
time.
great. Yeah. Let your calling be part of your whole life.
Holistic
Especially
perspective.
your work,
For sure.
whether you're doing full-time ministry or anything. Ministry is all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, so those are some great words, some good final thoughts. I hope you're enjoying everything as we're talking about don't waste your work. We want you to not waste your work and allow worship and work to coincide together all day, every day in your life.